The linchpin of the divorce industry is the family court, a relatively new institution that has arisen over the past 4 decades. Now, you wrote that in 2007, so 5 decades right now. Can you give me a brief rundown of the whole family court institution and how it, where it began and how it has come to where it is today? Or
well, it's a little murky because they are very secretive. They had their antecedents back in the creation of juvenile courts, back in early in the last century. And as usual, these were all rationalized as being more compassionate, that we should have courts for juvenile offenders that would treat them more passionately and not treat them like hardened criminals. And this was all said to be reside in equity law, which was distinguished from common law, and it gave more flexibility to the judges and to others to arrive at equitable decisions, even if they weren't strictly according to the law. Well, this gave judges, of course, enormous flexibility to play fast and loose with the rules. The juvenile courts were gradually expanded into family courts, and then when and much of this practice took place even before no-fault divorce. So in many ways, no-fault divorce in the 70s kind of ratified what was already taking place anyway, where parents were being involuntarily divorced or involuntarily losing their children without actually committing any either grounds for divorce or any other legal transgression. So gradually over the 20th century, these kinds of courts got more power to invade people's private lives under the guise of compassion, under the guise of being more flexible, and they gave them the wedge to work their way into people's private lives, and oftentimes to do so in ways that bended or broke the rules quite flagrantly.
I think at one point you said about 35% to 40% of the civil cases now run through the family court. Did I get that correctly?
Something like that. I mean, nobody really knows, but that's the estimate. Yes, and I can quote you. In fact, I do quote in the book one judge who writes, a family court judge who writes on this and says quite openly that the aim of the family court is to attract more business, to create more cases.
Wow. For
themselves. I mean, they say that if the judge does a good job, whatever that means, more people will come to the family court seeking services.
Yeah.
In other words, more divorces.
Yeah.
This is astounding. I mean, there's an old principle of the common law. I mean, you can go back to Walter Bagehot and other English legal theorists who say that the purpose of the law, in some ways, is Charles Dickens said the purpose of the English law is to make business for itself.
Right.
And so this has been going on for centuries. But the family law and the no-fault divorce system took this chicanery that was flagrant in the legal system, and it gave it massive, much more business. It expanded it enormously.
So when you mentioned Barbara Whitehead a little bit ago, one of the things I remember her saying is that many husbands and wives who did not seek or want a divorce were stunned to learn that they were equally at fault for the divorce. That also seems to be a contradiction. We have no-fault divorce, and now we find out, but you're at fault. I don't know if you have any estimates on this about the people that are forcefully divorced, involuntarily divorced. Do you have any?
I do have some estimates in the book. We don't have hard statistics on that.
Okay.
But we do have some indications. I think I came up, again, this was 10 years ago when the book was written.
Right.
I think I came up with a figure of about 700,000 people a year. Or maybe that was the number of children that were separated from their parents. I don't remember exactly. Wow. But it was, that was an estimate. It's huge.
Yeah. Where do most child custody cases end up? And I'm not trying to make this a gender issue or anything, but generally speaking, what do you see throughout the states?
Clearly, fathers bear the brunt of it overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
But some mothers do too.
Yeah.
And the point is, it's not, I don't like the analysis that some men come to that this is gender bias. I don't like that kind of jargon, for one thing, and I don't think that's really the issue.
Right.
I think it's the conflicts of interest, it's the politics behind the divorce system.
Right.
If it happens to a mother, it's equally unjust if it happens to a father.
Right.
And the striking thing, I mean, some people have argued that for men, Robert Seidenberg writes this in his book. He was a good friend of mine, and he wrote a book shortly before mine, and he argued that essentially the best recourse for a father, the best way to get custody or to get a better deal, was to, if you think the mother is going to divorce and take the children, you should strike first.
Right.
In other words, your best defense is an offense. The best way, there's no way a father can win once the wife divorces him and takes the
Right.
children.
Right.
He can't win. So the best thing he should do instead, Seidenberg hypothesized, is to strike first. Take the
Right.
children first, flee,
Yeah.
make up lies, make up accusations, get the children first, establish a fait accompli. You might not get custody, but at least you'll get a better shot.
Yeah.
So in other words, if he's right about that, and I think there's some logic to that,
Yeah.
basically we've created a race to the courthouse.
Right.
Whichever spouse divorces first
Yeah.
wins.
Yeah.
Now this is striking. I mean, it means that every parent in every home in America is living is a fool, is living dangerously if you don't divorce.
Yeah.
You should divorce your spouse immediately
Yeah.
before he or she divorces you.
Yeah, yeah. There was one judge that I read from 2004 or so. She had been presided over a number of divorce cases, I believe 4,000, and her conclusion was this. She said that out of all these people that came in for divorce, she felt that over 50% of the people that actually filed for the divorce, the filers, didn't want the divorce. They were crying out for help. And that she blames the state. Said, you have failed these people and you've helped to destroy their families. What you're talking about is that not only in her case, she's saying the state is at blame, but the whole policy of the state creates the divorce epidemic. So that the rush to the courthouse because I want the kids, because my wife might file against me or my husband might file against me. So rather than having marriage as a lifelong institution, which is what we tend to believe it's supposed to be, when you go to the altar, you're married for life, and yet the court practices almost say, for any reason, for no reason, your marriage is temporary, by the way. All you have to do is have one person that just says, I'm not happy, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And the state actually becomes an agent of destroying families.